Hello everyone and welcome to Smokes and Spirits. This is the show where we take a deep dive into the fine art of pairing good bourbons and good cigars. I'm Tim and I'm going to be your guide through this smoky and spirited journey. Whether you've been smoking cigars, drinking bourbon for a long time, or whether you're new to the game, this show is all about enhancing your enjoyment, one pairing at a time. Today we're going to go with a very bold and flavorful combination of Oliva V, Maduro, and a Wild Turkey 101. So get ready to experience some rich complexity, spice, smooth finish, and a little bit of heat as we go on this fantastic journey. So let's start with the cigar. This is an Oliva V Maduro. It is a double toro, and a double toro means it's 6 inches long, and it's got a 60 ring gauge. And for those of you who don't know, a ring gauge is 1/64th of an inch. So a 60 ring gauge is 60/64ths of an inch. So this is almost a full inch around. Well, I like the big cigars. A lot of people like smaller cigars like Toros, like Robustos. And really, when you consider the three aspects of how a cigar is put together, the filler, the wrapper, and then the binder that goes between the wrapper and the filler, most of the flavor really comes from the wrapper. So when you smoke bigger cigars, sometimes you miss a little bit of the flavor you can get when you've got more wrapper to filler ratio. But I like the experience and I like the feeling of smoking, for the most part, the bigger cigars. Well, before I light this up and tell you a little bit more about what this was going to experience like, it might be fun to tell you a little bit about the history of Oliva cigars. It started way back in 1886 when Melanio Oliva started growing tobacco in Pinar del Rio in Cuba. I didn't know this until I was doing some research for this particular podcast, but one of the most premium releases in the Oliva line is the Melanio V. Never knew who they named it after, certainly not the First Lady. It was named after, clearly, Melanio Oliva. After Melanio, his son, Facundo, continued the tradition in Cuba for quite a while. In the late 1950s, though, when Gilberto, the grandson of Melanio, son of Facundo, was in the cigar industry in Cuba, Fidel Castro came to power, and he started to nationalize all of the fields, growers, and all of the manufacturers. And so many names that we would recognize now in Nicaragua, the Dominican Republic, left Cuba, and so did Gilberto. He looked all over to find a place that he thought was going to be like Cuba for growing tobacco. He went to Dominican, he went to Ecuador, but he found exactly what he was looking for in Nicaragua. In Nicaragua, he found volcanic ash, humid climate, just perfect to grow tobacco in. In Cuba, the Oliva family just grew tobacco for other producers. But when they moved to Nicaragua, they started to decide to make their own cigars. The family worked as a unit. Gilberto had sons and daughters. Gilberto Jr. and Carlos focused on the growing and the production in Nicaragua, while his daughter Jeannie and other son Jose managed the business from Miami, introducing the world to Oliva cigars. The first cigars they brought out were pretty simple, handmade flavored cigars sold in bundles, not in boxes. But in 1990s, the cigar boom hit. Maybe in another episode we'll talk a bit about that cigar boom as we dive deeper into the industry. And the Oliva saw an opportunity, and they released the Grand Cameroon, their first premium line. It featured a beautiful box press 6.5 by 60 figurado. Again, remember, 6.5 means it's 6.5 inches long, and the same ring gauge as the one I'm holding, 60. A beautiful cigar at a pretty good price, and smokers definitely took notice. From there, they released the Grand Maduro, a bolder, richer blend. Introduced new sizes, like a very big 8-inch long 52 Presidente. But they weren't just about bigger cigars. They were trying to make statements. Their super premium O-line, which you can still find today, was and is a dark, full-bodied Nicaraguan Puro. Now, Puro simply means that all three parts of the cigar, the wrapper, the binder, the filler, come from the same country. So all three parts were from Nicaragua. And it came in really, really sharp, lacquered humidor-style boxes. Then in 2006, the Olivas made their boldest move yet. They did a total brand makeover. They didn't have different packaging for different cigars and different labels for different cigars, or different logos on labels for different cigars. This sleek, beautiful Oliva logo became what they used everywhere. But the real game changer came in 2007 with the release of the Oliva Series V. Not just another Oliva cigar. This is actually a powerhouse. Stronger, richer, with a deep Nicaraguan spice. Great looking wrapper with a great band. It really stands out. Makes me want to light it up. Give me a second, will you? There really is nothing better after a busy day at work, busy day, whatever, taking the chance to light up a beautiful, beautiful cigar. Beautiful. This really cemented the Oliva's place at the top of the industry. Really got them global recognition. Today, Oliva remains a symbol of excellence in the cigar world, from their roots in Cuba to their real dominance in Nicaragua. Their journey is one of passion, perseverance, and exceptional cigars. The Oliva V itself is a full-bodied cigar from Nicaragua. It's got a high-priming Ligero sun-grown wrapper from San Andres, Mexico. High priming means top of the tobacco plant, so it gets more sunlight. And because it's grown in the sun, that sun is more intense to those Ligero leaves. That sun really gives it a boldness. The sun exposure really leads to thicker leaves with a higher concentration of oils, resulting in a richer, more robust flavor. It contributes to its full-bodied profile, and it delivers deep spice, strength, and a beautiful, slow, controlled burn. The exceptional construction is really one of the standouts here. The binder is Nicaraguan, carefully selected to enhance the overall strength and the burn consistency of the cigar. And then the heart of the Oliva V is in the Nicaraguan long filler. Long filler simply means that the center of the cigar is one long leaf bunched around several other long leaves, not pieces like a cigarette kind of pushed together. And that lets it burn really well, and it gives it some other flavors, some of the nuance of the flavors. You get some cedar, some leather, and a little bit of a sweetness. So when you pick up the Oliva V, you can expect a deep, rich smoke. Notes of dark chocolate espresso, but it's got a nice lingering peppery spice. And I'll tell you, the construction and the even burn and the very smooth draw will really benefit new cigar enthusiasts. Now, everyone loves the way that an Oliva smokes, but the reason I think it's so nice for beginners is because you may not yet have developed a flavor profile where you get what we all talk about, cedar and spice and leather and tobacco. What you taste is smoke, and you just really enjoy the process of lighting one up, the relaxed atmosphere of just smoking by yourself or with your friends, and that's perfectly fine. But if that's what you're doing it for, you want a cigar that's not going to unwrap. You want a cigar that's going to keep that nice, even burn around the top. And when you put it in your mouth and pull on it, you don't want to have to work awfully hard to get that smoke into your mouth. You want a nice, easy, but not too easy draw. So that is the Oliva V. It's fantastic. Now, I picked this as my first pairing, and people ask me all the time, what is your favorite cigar? What is your favorite bourbon? And the answer to that is, it really all depends. It's not an easy question. For the cigar side, what time of day is it? Sometimes I like a lighter cigar in the morning. How much time do I have? As you probably can guess, it takes a lot longer to smoke this double Toro cigar than it does a Robusto that's an inch shorter and only 52 ring gauge. So how much time do I have? What am I drinking with? Am I having a cup of coffee? Am I having a great bourbon? Am I having a soda? And similarly, they say, what is your favorite bourbon? And that's a similarly difficult question. How am I preparing my drink? Today I'm going to have it neat, meaning just the liquid, no ice, no mixer. But sometimes I like it with a big cube. Sometimes I like it with some ginger ale. Sometimes I like it as a Manhattan or as an old fashioned. And so the best bourbon, the best cigar really depends on the situation. But there is a reason that I chose the Oliva V and the Wild Turkey 101 today. And the reason is these are both exceptional quality at a reasonable price. The Oliva V runs $10 to $11 per cigar. The smaller ones that more of you might appreciate than me, probably a little bit cheaper than that. If you buy, 5, 10, or even a whole box, you're going to get even a little bit less expensive than that. And the Wild Turkey, which we're going to talk about here in a moment, but I got this bottle today at the local Meijer for $28. I enjoy some of the more expensive bourbons, but if I'm going to have a second bourbon, or if it's just me sitting around watching a game on TV, this is a great quality bourbon to go to. Wild Turkey 101 is a classic Kentucky bourbon known for its bold character. It's got a high rye mash bill. The mash bill is just the ingredients, the grain ingredients, I should say. Obviously, there's water. And this is a 75% corn. 51% corn is required to be a bourbon. 13% rye and 12% barley. So that high rye mash bill delivers some spice, caramel, and vanilla, but it's balanced by a deep oak and a long, warm finish. It's 101 proof. Typically, bourbons that are less expensive or almost entry-level bourbons are at 86 proof. 101 proof is 50.5% alcohol, which gives it some deep characteristics that you won't get in an 86 proof bourbon. And at 101 proof, it has the strength to stand up to really full-bodied cigars. It has a good mouthfeel and a subtle sweetness. It's an excellent companion to the Oliva V. But Wild Turkey isn't just another bourbon. Like Oliva, it has quite a story. It all starts with a location, a piece of land that would eventually become known as Wild Turkey Hill. In 1830, the Rippey family arrived from Europe. The Rippeys had a long history of distilling spirits in Europe, and they would become the backbone of the brand's early future. By the late 1800s, they were distilling at the Cliff Springs Distillery in Kentucky, and in 1988, they purchased the Old Moor Distillery, and that would be the foundation for the bourbon legacy we know today. The business side of things starts with the grocer, Nichols and Company, which was founded in 1855 in New York City, of all things. It was started as a grocery wholesaler, but in the 1930s, Austin Nichols shifted to wine and liquor. Meanwhile, the Rippey family continued distilling in Kentucky, and in 1935, they built their own Rippey Brothers Distillery, making their own brands and also contract distilling for everybody else. So how did this all come together to become the Wild Turkey that we know today? Legend has it that in 1936, the president of Austin Nichols, a man named Thomas McCarthy, was on a wild turkey hunting trip with his friends. He brought along a bottle of his finest bourbon. His buddies were so impressed they started asking for that Wild Turkey whiskey, and just like that, the name stuck. By 1940, Austin Nichols launched their first Wild Turkey label. But at the time, they were still buying their whiskey from many other distilleries, and they were buying from Bernheim, from Barton, from Beam, from Shenley, and the Rippey Brothers Distillery. This would continue until 1971, when Austin Nichols bought the Boulevard Distillery, renaming it the Wild Turkey Distillery. From that day on, every drop of Wild Turkey bourbon was distilled in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. No history of Wild Turkey could be complete without talking about one man, and that man is Jimmy Russell. Jimmy is the longest tenured master distiller in bourbon history. He joined Wild Turkey way back in 1954. His experience and expertise are at the heart of what makes Wild Turkey so special. In 1967, when I was 4, Jimmy took over as master distiller, and he's been the master distiller for over 5 decades. Not only did he shape the flavor and the fortunes of Wild Turkey's future, but he helped elevate the brand's standing in global spirits. In 2000, Jimmy Russell was inducted into the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame, a well-deserved recognition. As the years went on, Wild Turkey continued to evolve. By the late 1990s, there are new offerings coming out of the Wild Turkey distillery. Rare Breed, one of my favorites. Russell's Reserve, another one of my favorites, were introduced. Each of these showcased Jimmy's commitment to preserving the traditions of Kentucky bourbon while still pushing boundaries. In 2009, Campari, a global conglomerate alcohol distributor, purchased Wild Turkey for a cool $575 million. And the distillery then saw some changes, including the construction of a new visitor center and distillery. Eddie Russell, Jimmy's son, followed in his father's footsteps, and he became master distiller in 2015. The Russell family's presence continues to Wild Turkey to this day, and Eddie's son, Bruce Russell, serves as a brand ambassador. Jimmy Russell is still there. He recently released a 70th anniversary Wild Turkey commemorative. That's how long he's been there. It's been a remarkable milestone that speaks to dedication to craftsmanship and decades of work. Now, the beauty of the Wild Turkey 101 is its balance. It's rich and intense, but yet not overwhelming. What a great nose. There's nothing to me I enjoy more than the first smell of the whiskey. You can really get the pepper off of the rye heavy mash bill. There's some sweetness to it. The corn, you can smell the sweetness, and you can pick up that oak from the barrel. On the front, in addition to the spice, you get a little sweetness of the vanilla and caramel. You get some oak on the mid palate that comes from the charred oak barrels. And then kind of on the back, you get an orange zest and that rich oak flavor that just lies there together. And the spice kind of lingers without becoming overpowering. It's got a great finish, especially for a less expensive bourbon, but the 101 proof helps with that. It's got a little bit of smokiness too, but nothing too harsh. So why do these two things pair so well together? Well, it's all about balance. There's a couple of different ways traditionally where you can and how you choose to pair your cigars and your bourbons. One is complementary. That means that they have a lot of the same characteristics and they flow together very well. The other is contrasting. And contrasting means maybe I've got a really heavier whiskey and a Connecticut shade wrapper cigar or a lighter cigar. Maybe I've got some pepper in the cigar, so I get maybe a little bit of a sweeter whiskey. Bottom line is, the pairing that works best for you is what's correct. But it is fun to pair different cigars and different bourbons together. And in this pairing, it's kind of a balance between complementary and contrasting, because they both have a boldness so that neither one overpowers the other. And I'll tell you, that first sip, after a draw, it's really magical. When you light it up, you're immediately hit with that rich spice and complexity. And then you've got that spicy rye, and it can match that intensity right off of that bat. But the magic really happens when the flavors complement each other. The Wild Turkey's got some smokiness that amplifies the earthy richness that I find in the Oliva V. And the spice from the bourbon enhances the peppery heat from the cigar. The caramel and sweetness from the Wild Turkey provides a contrast to the darker, more bitter notes from the cigar. It creates a great balance between the two. Oh, it's really the cohesion of flavors. It's not just that both are bold, but they elevate each other. They're so good together. When you're enjoying your Wild Turkey 101 and your Oliva V, take your time, savor the moment. Let the bourbon breathe for a minute before sipping. This helps open up the flavors. Start by sipping the bourbon slowly and let the flavors develop on your tongue. Then take your puff from the Oliva V and allow the smoke to linger. Notice how the flavors of both the bourbon and the cigar start to intertwine. They build a fuller and more complex experience as you go. Remember, there's no rush here. This pairing is not about the destination, it's about the journey. Both of these things, the Wild Turkey 101, the Oliva V, have the kind of depth and richness that you really appreciate over time. And when they're paired together, they both somehow become even greater. Well, that wraps up this episode of Smokes and Spirits. Stay tuned on this channel for my friends and I smoking cigars and bourbon while we rate the greatest comedies of all time. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Oliva and the Oliva V cigar and Wild Turkey 101 bourbon. Give this pairing a try and let me know your thoughts. Until next time, keep your smokes lit and your spirits high. Cheers.